Hello and welcome back to another Out of Spec Reviews video. Welcome to an Ionity charging station here in Germany. It's a little bit windy, the rain's coming in, but I have a Porsche Taycan Turbo Sport Turismo, a version we do not yet have available in the US. It may never come, I'll explain. And we have to go on a very quick trip at very high speed. You see, I'm charged up to just about 100% state of charge. The car's just about to complete, and we're heading over to another DC fast charger with a lot of de-restricted Autobahn in between. So I figured, why don't you join me for a blast at top speed in the Porsche Taycan Turbo Sport Turismo. Right now I have the car DC fast charging in Sport Plus mode up to 100%. The reason I've chosen Sport Plus is it runs the most aggressive battery cooling strategy, so we have the longest duration before it overheats at full speed. You can hear the fans are ripping crazy over here. We're at 97%. I ran in, grabbed a little bit of lunch, came out. The car's pretty much done. We've added 80 kilowatt hours, a deep charging session here. A little bit about the car. This is the Taycan Sport Turismo. There's three different variants of this car. There's the sedan that the car launched with, then the Cross Turismo came afterwards. That is the higher riding with the plastic arches, a gravel dirt mode, and it just is a little bit more of an all-rounder. This is that same exact body as the Cross Turismo, the wagon form that I think we can agree looks just freaking awesome. But now, of course, in Sport Turismo, which means none of the off-roady stuff. So you don't get the wider fender flares, which actually the Cross Turismo looks pretty good when you get this beefy flare on there. And I have a friend who has a purple one of these that's wrapped the fenders in purple, and then they look pretty good rather than the black plastic. In the US market, we get the Sport Turismo, but it's only in GTS trim. And here in Europe, you can get the Sport Turismo in pretty much any trim. Here comes an iX3 rolling up. Europe is just wild, isn't it? We have some cool options. We have the carbon ceramic brakes all around, but painted in black, so you would never know. You don't see the yellow brake calipers that are traditional for Porsche carbon ceramic brakes, these yellow gold color. We have, I don't know, 700 and something horsepower in the turbo trim. There's only one higher, which is the Turbo S trim, and the car is just fully optioned with, forgive some of the junk in the back here, with rear seat entertainment, but then it's also a very press car spec, a Euro press car spec with no sunroof. It's a slick top, which I think is just one of the coolest things, but in the US, not so available. If we take a look inside, we have the 18-way power seats. We got Red Bull to keep us awake. We've got all the displays here. It's just got pretty much everything. It's got a little bit of this new software on, but not the fully newest software. We're charged up to 98%. We're gonna head out onto the Autobahn. I'll tell you a bit more about the car, a bit more about driving here, and then we're gonna see what this thing can do at top speed. Well, you joined me inside the Taycan, so let's go into reverse right now and back out. We have rear steering in this car, which isn't as crazy as EQS. EQS gets up to 10 degrees of rear steering, but in this particular one, we get, I want to say, anywhere from 1.6 to 2 degrees of rear steer. That really just helps pivot the car for this tight maneuvering situation. And this thing, do I need to explain? We've done a lot of Taycan stories, is freaking awesome. This trim level is really, really cool. So I'm just putting in basically where we want to go, which is 40 minutes away. Now at top speed, we don't get much range. So anyway, we're gonna go into Sport Plus, and I think we should do a full launch control out onto the Autobahn. Temperatures at 34 degrees C for the battery pack, which is good. So there's a construction zone up there, so we only get a tiny bit of de-restricted at start, but left foot hard on the brake, flooring at the right, launch control active, full power, just spinning all four wheels, and it rips, and then we'll brake to merge on with traffic. This thing is just a rocket ship. Now, no secret that I own a Model S Plaid. Oh, it's just a Stau warning for traffic, but de-restricted, wide open, and I think this actually feels unbelievably stable at top speed. Here we go, 240 kilometers an hour, 250, and we're on the brakes for a little bit of traffic. But instantly, welcome to Germany, and welcome to a real serious car. Now we're going to find out exactly what the top speed is on this particular vehicle, but my goodness, does it just rocket up to 250 kilometers like nothing. Very close to 140, 150 miles an hour in that region. Gets up there, dead silent, and so freaking competent. So, Sport Turismo trim really quick. Now, I have mentioned to you that I have a Taycan on order, and essentially the way that the ordering system works for this car, we do have to make a turn and head back the other way, is you have to put in basically a wait list at the dealership you intend to purchase the car from, which is Ed Carroll in Fort Collins in Colorado. And basically when they have an ability to configure a Taycan GTS Sport Turismo, I'm on that list. So they're waiting for their allocations to get allotted to the dealer. Then when they get a car that I get to configure, I get to choose that configuration, my car, with a deposit, and then I get to spec my Taycan. Now, the reason I got the Model S Plaid was to hold me over with something cool that I thought you guys would also enjoy on the channel, to hold me over until the Taycan comes in. And that's still very much the intention. So I wish I could go for a Turbo or Turbo S Sport Turismo in America, but it's not possible. It's also crazy expensive. So I think the GTS is probably the trim I would go for anyway, and it's the one that's available. So you have to let me know on spec and things like this. I've just waiting for the call that says, hey, we have an allocation, and that's when go time hits. But I think it's going to be a long while. There's huge production delays on this car, a lot of things with the war, with part shortages that have really affected Taycan, and well, yeah, just not possible to get mine as soon as I would want. Anyway, let's go back onto the Autobahn. We have to go to the left and talk a little bit about thermal management, things that I'm going to be looking out for throughout this drive at high speed, because an electric car at high speed really, honestly, if you don't want to watch the whole video, sucks. And this is a use case as to which cars just don't shine. This works. Full power on the way in, rear axle wanting to rotate. You can really drive this thing quite aggressive if you wanted to. We'll back the stability control off just a hair so that we can get a little bit of playtime on this car. It really freaking rips. There's no other way of saying it other than it rips. I'm just going to go slow so we can let these guys go up ahead so we can rip this on-ramp corner. And driving an electric car at high speed is crazy. Maybe what we should do, there's no one behind us, is I should go to trip and I will reset since, hold on, reset since. Good, let's go. Full speed. Into the corner, thing just hunkers down, full send. My goodness, can you just shred onto a freaking road? And we are just caught up with traffic, and here we are. Whoa. 0.2 miles per kilowatt hour so far. Very nice. It is midday, there's traffic, and at the end of the day, driving in Germany is very interesting. And we'll get into the regulations, how you should drive on the highway first, but let's talk about electric cars and high speed. I'll turn the sport sound off for a second just so you get a sense of how quiet this car is, because with this double thermal noise insulated glass and no glass roof, it's dead silent. The loudest thing is the air conditioning fan at 100 kilometers an hour, or 62 miles an hour. Driving an electric car at high speed is crazy because the resistance forces go up on a logarithmic curve. So essentially your air resistance, your tire resistance, everything not only increases, normally, but it increases exponentially as the faster you go. We all know this. The best way to extend your electric car driving range is by driving slowly, but you get hit on both ends, similar to elevation changes. With speed, not only are you having to burn more energy to push the air out of the way, to force this car at very high speed through the wind, you also have to output a lot of throttle or a lot of power. And the more power you output, the more heat loss there is. Now, this is an 800 volt system architecture, which helps with heat loss, but still I find that the thermals cannot handle the driving that I throw at this car, and it does overheat. And any electric car will overheat at a point. This one, if you leave fully charged at a charging station, you can go almost flat out for your first drive, as long as you're not using wide open accelerations and inching the car up to max speed. You're good for one full charge. pretty much hammering it. And during the day, we'll never reach these thermal limits. It's really only at night when you get miles and miles of de-restricted road and you're just wide open the whole time. And then, of course, you know, that kind of hurts your usable energy capacity, because you're burning your energy off as heat the harder you accelerate. And so that means range kind of sucks. And if you guys are interested to see like a range test at top speed, perhaps I can find a real quiet section of road in the middle of the night when no one's around and test this out for you. But driving in Germany, to mention this, because I'll record when we have a little bit more open road in a bit, it's a exercise in respectfulness, I would say. You really don't want to tailgate, you don't want to flash, you don't want to have the left turn signal on. These are all things that are customary in Germany, but not so much anymore. And there's definitely this stigma around this de-restricted section of Autobahn, where it's becoming a bit of a I would say a battle inside of Germany. I think it's the last country that has only a recommended speed on certain sections of road. This one is a go as fast as you want. We're in Germany, there's roadworks, there's stuff. We'll open it up in a little bit. And some people hate it. They're like, this is dangerous. This is, you know, not good for the environment, because people are burning more combustion to go faster or using more electricity in their electric car. And other people are like, hey, it's our freedom. Just let me drive how I want to drive and don't give me a speed limit. And, you know, it's up to me to decide if I want to burn more fuel or less. I don't know. For me, I love it. This is the allure of the country for me, is being able to get in a car and hammer down. But you don't want to tailgate. You don't want to pass trucks at crazy speeds when you're right next to them. You want to give them a little bit of room. You don't want to drive in the left. You want to drive in the right and pass on the left. These are all the general things you want to do. So it's all about driving fast, but not pissing anyone off, if we boil it down to it. Anyway, let's get some traffic out of our way and see what this Taycan's like when we really rip on it. Here we go, car is out of the way, thank you very much, and we are deploying full acceleration. It's everything she's got, 200 kilometers an hour, 120 miles an hour, blowing right past that, up to 240, 250, really looking deep into the distance, 262, and we're on the brakes for a little bit of traffic using those carbon ceramics. This Taycan can regen up to 265 kilowatts, even through ABS, if you get to that point. So the recuperation is one of the strongest in the industry. I think the only thing stronger is, I want to say, Hummer EV, I think. But look at this, 230 kilometers an hour, we're back to wide open throttle, just getting close to our speed limit, 260. Let's see what this thing will do. 265, 267. Just lifting a little bit for this truck. And we're just cruising along at 265, 6, 7, 8, 9, 268. On the brakes hard now. And man, does this thing, if I wanted to hit, you know, I could brake harder if I wanted to. And what's cool about the Euro spec versions of this car is it flashes the brake lights when you get hard on the brakes. It's just an endless amount of braking ability in this. And really, you want to brake early. When you're going this fast, it takes so long to stop, and your eyes are focused way off in the distance. But my goodness, are the ceramics such a good option to have for this type of driving. In the US, you probably don't need carbon ceramics. If you track the car really hard, you'll burn up the discs. I mean, that's like if you're just pounding this thing. But if you go for general track days, maybe it's a good option. The surface coated brakes would be interesting as well. The GTS trim in the Taycan actually gets a little bit larger standard brake than the Taycan 4S. I think the GTS with the standard brakes probably would be fine for 99% of people, because most of your braking is done with recuperation or regen. But wow, this thing just puts the anchors down when you need it to. Pretty impressive, and it's a heavy car. In terms of high-speed stability, it just gets up to speed like nothing else. I've had the great opportunity to drive Taycan a little bit in Europe. We had one last year. We had a Taycan Turbo Cross Turismo. Now we have it in Sport Turismo trim. And you come across other cars, M5s, AMG Mercedes, 911s, and there is something really cool about being able to keep up with these cars. Not that you're racing, it's illegal to race on the Autobahn anyway, but you know, just to like accelerate in normal traffic, you can pretty much keep up with anything in this. Now, some of the real combustion stuff have a higher top speed and they end up walking away from you, But this thing is absolutely planted in the corners, and it's just mind-bending at how quickly it gets up to 250 kph. The climb from 250 to 269, which is the top speed of this car indicated, is a little bit of a slow roll, but that's all software controlled. And so now we're just swapping Autobahns. We're going from, I think, the 7 to the 8, and we're heading towards the charging park where I made a video. I think it was called, like, this is the craziest charging station in the world. That's where we're heading to now. Have an off-ramp here, so let's just lean it over. Again, we have everything in Sport Plus fully leaned up, and my goodness, does it just corner so flat. And you can hear these tires, 305 section tires in the rear. We got stuff flying around in the car. My goodness, this is just, it's the machine to have. Good thermal management. Again, it can't handle being driven at top speed and then fast charged. That's what overheats this car very quickly in the Taycan, as if we can just kind of zoom past everyone. Thank you very much. De-restricted and full power. And again, just whoa, eats up the freaking road when you do this. And you don't realize how fast it is till you start coming up on cars and you're like, oh my goodness, this is a weapon. And we've already raised the temperature a little bit. We've gone up to 36 degrees Celsius. But in Sport Plus, when it gets warm, it diverts the cooling from the cabin and stuffs it into the battery. A message comes up that shows this, and that way the battery can stay cooler and the whole drive system. The one real issue with this car is, especially at nighttime when you can drive fast, like this whole section, you can go 270 kph all the way to Munich, basically. That's where your range obviously sucks. You get, you know, maybe 80 miles driving like this on a charge, but this car charges really fast, which is awesome. But that overheats it. So you get it really hot driving hard, and then the car is stationary. You plug it into a fast charger and there's no air running over for it to cool. The fans are ripping, and it does a really good charging session, but as soon as you pull out on the road, you get no power, and it's in turtle mode, and it takes a bit for it to unlock. I don't know if I'll show you that type of situation. I've already shown you this. If you watch some of our out-of-spec motoring road trip videos in the Taycan Turbo Cross Turismo, we explain this whole situation. One thing I'm really looking forward to about this whole topic of heat management is in the new software coming for the car, they allow the batteries to get a little bit warmer before they start derating charging. And I think that will also have an effect on driving performance, that it's going to let everything get a little bit toastier. And so this one has the colored icons, but it's not on the newest software. And so I asked Porsche, hey, you know, we really need the newest software. And so they're going to update this car, and then next time I'm here in Germany in a couple weeks, they're going to give it back to me, and then we're going to do all the charging testing, the range testing, because efficiency should be increased, and that's where we're going to do the real hardcore nerd stuff. But at least today I wanted to take you for this nice little drive. So let's let the road open up some more. We'll have some more fun driving at high speed, but this is kind of realistic for driving during the day in Germany. You get lucky with the open stretches, you take advantage when you can, but for the most part, you're just crawling along at typical normal highway pace. The road is opening up now, and we can really put our foot down and have some fun. So again, just hanging towards the left side, really keeping an eye on what everyone else is doing. Speed restricted zone on the brakes, but we got up to 260 kph. Welcome to daytime driving in Germany on the brakes for speed limits. I think a lot of people think that the road is de-restricted all the time. That is not the case, friends. Unfortunately not. But wow, does it just rip up the speed like nothing. So now I'm going to put on Porsche InnoDrive, which is lane centering, and then it's Porsche InnoDrive with active lane keeping is the actual name. So the InnoDrive adapts to the speed limits. It knows when a speed limit drops in advance, and it pulls me down for this, and it works every time. I think we did a hogback challenge with the Taycan a few weeks ago, one of our driver assistance challenges, and it didn't work in that particular car, but it is in this one. And it really works well in Europe. It really integrates with a lot of things with swarm data and a bunch of stuff. And I think after the newer update, I'll do a full in-depth video on this with the newest software to really explain how everything works, which is really sweet. So off we go then to Zussmarshausen. I think is how you say it, Zussmarshausen, I don't know. It's a really cool charging park, the Sortimo fast charging park. It shows me that there's 44 of 46 available plug-in spots, but there's actually 70 DC fast chargers. If you haven't watched that video, I highly encourage you to. I'll leave the link in the description. And there we go, passing the 130 no longer, which means foot to the floor. I've got the car set up exactly how I want it. It's Sport Plus for the extra cooling. I've got the car lowered all the way to the lowest chassis height. Really helps hunker the car down. And I've also got the dampers firmed up. Now, typically I like a little bit of a softer ride. I don't like the dampers maxed out all the time, but when you're driving at these high speeds, there's a lot of forces going through the suspension system on this car, especially around the corners, and that's where it's really nice to just have the firmest dampers to help with sort of compliance in the suspension. It firms everything up. And here we are, just sitting at 270. A car is up ahead, so again, using the ceramic brakes to hold us down, but not much. I mean, we could slow down much harder if we wanted to. Come on, Nissan Qashqai. No, it's the Nissan Pulsar. Back to full power. Here we go then. My goodness, does this thing cover some distance. This is the best part of Germany, is like, yeah, normally I'd swap into the right lane there, but we closed this gap in 2 seconds, and of course no one's behind us. You never want to clog someone up. Ford Transit out of the way, thank you so much. Here we go. I'll just nudge over one lane because it's, again, customary to not drive in the left. We'll give people a little bit of room if they need it. Coming up on the left-hand side, and we are just wide open in the Taycan. And these people are doing like 100 miles an hour. It's not like they're going slow. Off in the distance, a car pulls out. I think it's a Seat Tarraco. Yep. Thank you very much. And just poof, back to full speed again. This car eats the miles. It's 30 degrees Celsius outside today, so it's not totally hot, but it's a nice, perfect day. Very little wind. And my goodness. The thing is, I was driving, I've driven quite a few cars on this road at top speed, especially, this is typically where I do my top speed test. Look at this, 270 kilometers an hour into a corner, and it's cornering dead flat. I mean, you do have to put in quite a bit of steering lock. When you get up on the brakes, it puts deflection into the suspension, so you got to add a little bit more. You just feel the stress of this thing getting pulled to the ground as we just munch the miles. This car is coming over. Thank you for keeping an eye in the mirror. Always got to cover the brake pedal, the lights, and the horn just in case. And now we can come up. We don't want to fly up on people, so I'll slow down early. Whoa. So the big difference between this and the Cross Turismo that I drove, again, both turbo, both with ceramics, is this car feels so much more stable at high speed. That car felt stable at high speed, don't get me wrong, and it had, I think, the same top speed, maybe a little bit less. Whereas this car just feels like you could go to sleep right now. We're doing 250, it feels like nothing. We got a left lane hog. What is this guy doing? Move over. Thank you. Some people don't follow lane discipline as they should. But look at this. Even just being able to work our way through traffic is pretty freaking amazing. This person just driving in the left lane for fun, I guess. I'm not really sure. And we do get a speed restriction just up here. So this is pretty much, thank you. We'll get one last full throttle acceleration. And then we have a speed limit. No, we don't actually. It's open. This is just for rain. And we're wide open. BMW i3 up on the right here. This is the best. Germany! Sending it. And this is where it's really important to keep an eye on traffic. I feel like there's a lot of cars around, so I'm just backing off so we don't pass everyone at insane speeds. Again, the recommended speed limit on this road is 130 kilometers per hour. We're obviously over that. Legal to be over it. We passed a cop doing 270 kilometers. They didn't do anything. It feels weird, but you get used to it. What's going to be really hard, it always is I'm flying back to the US in 2 days, and my goodness, I am not ready to drive at this speed everywhere. It feels like we're not even moving. We had a conversation, my friend Tom and I were talking, I'm like, I can get out of the car and walk right now is what it feels like. And then you can back the car down over into normal mode. I have it set to keep the suspension down, but it backs the dampers off, and now it just has compliance. It wafts, feels great, still has all the power in the world if I want it. For example, here where this guy's out of the way, even in normal mode, I can rip and absolutely haul butt. And then big regen, and you can see driving like this drastically heats up the drivetrain. We're already at 46 degrees Celsius. Taycan likes to be warmer than other EVs. They typically get warmer when charging. The batteries like it. The chemistry is more adapted to warmer temperatures than other electric cars that I've driven, but you can still overheat it, of course. I'd really love to do a Taycan versus Model S Plaid out here on the Autobahn. I can tell you for sure I need the mountain pass brakes in the Model S Plaid, just not because you're flying up on people and slamming on the brakes, but stopping these big heavy cars requires a lot of braking power, just sheer braking force. And yeah, this one also has Porsche dynamic chassis control, which is kind of cool. I don't know if you can see the screen, but as you go into a corner, you can watch it basically counteract the roll forces of the car. It's just so cool. And it also has night vision. Look at this. We can go to night view assist. I don't think you can see it from your side. I'll insert a little clip of it, but essentially you can drive around with night vision and it'll highlight animals and people. It's a great option to have. Not cheap, but I really like it. Okay, off we go then. I think we're not going to have any more fun before the charging station, so I'll see you over at the Turismo charging park. So there you have it, just a quick blast at top speed in this car. Wow, does it not just look insane? This thing is so cool. The Mission-E wheels in this Dolomite silver, really good specification. Over 200,000 euros for this particular one. Plenty more videos to come with this car. Wanted to introduce you to the car, of course. Let you know that we're going to be doing a software update for plenty more videos to come. I really want to wait for the software update to do all the fun, nerdy stuff with it. But let's talk about what we experienced. Unbelievable stability, unbelievable acceleration at high speeds, really bad range. And of course, it puts a lot of thermal stress into the car. Now, in terms of cost when driving like this, surprisingly, it's actually cheaper, at least here in Europe, depending on what tier you're on, to drive fast in a combustion car, because you burn so much of the battery pack, which means you need to charge deeper, putting more kilowatt hours into the battery pack, spending more time when charging, putting more thermal stress on the vehicle. This is not the best use case of an EV, at least when you're trying to cover distance. But if you have a commute, let's just say from Augsburg to Munich or something like this on a de-restricted section that's within the full charge range of your car at high speed, wow, an electric car is so cool. And then you just level 2 charge on either end. That's a good use case. I find most EV drivers here in Germany are driving about 100 miles an hour is where I'm seeing most of the Teslas cruising, 160, 170 kph when I roll up alongside of them. That seems to be what most people are doing around here, and that fits pretty well with the top speed of most electric cars on the market today. I really think for here at least, I know it's at one market out of the whole world, but for example, our ID.5 GTX we've been testing, this does 185 kilometers per hour. That is the sweet spot. I think 160 is a bit too slow because then it's hard to pass cars out on the road. This is just an absolute animal out on the Autobahns. The 2-speed, you can tell the car is built for this, but there's only so much you can do with battery electric and range and efficiency when driving like an absolute idiot. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me on a quick drive over here to the Turismo fast charging park. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're really as impressed as I am every time I drive a Taycan quickly. They are just insane. And let me know if you want to see a Plaid versus Taycan out here on the German Autobahns covering distance quickly. I think we have to make that happen at some point in the very near future. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.